Hey guys, Megan here. It's been a long time since I filmed a regular video, but I'm really excited to be doing this again. This was a video that I've been wanting to film for a very long time. I've ranked Elizabeth Gaskell's novels, I've ranked Jane Austen's novels, I'll link those below, and now I want to rank the Brontes. So the Brontes together, all three sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, wrote 7 novels between them. And I finally read the last Bronte novel for this Victober. I read Shirley. So I have now ranked them, and I will start with my least favorite and go up until my favorite. Now this is with the caveat that this is not the best novel to the worst novel. This is my least favorite to my favorite. So I do acknowledge that you could arguably say that my least favorite is the best written novel out of all of these, and I know that for some people my least favorite is their favorite. So just with that caveat, this is just what I like. As well, my preferences might change from day to day. I've thought it out. Today, this is what my preferences are. Maybe if you disagree with me, you can argue down below and say, no, this novel is really great, and maybe it'll end up changing my mind. So without further ado, I will start off with novel number 7, my least favorite, and I will give you a hint. It is by Charlotte Bronte. It is her masterpiece, as I've heard it described, Villette. I just could not get into Villette. It might have been where I was at. I listened to it half on audiobook and half read it, and whenever I listen to a classic for the first time, I'm more of a visual learner, so it's better for me to visually read something the first time I read it, especially with a classic, and then go back and listen to it on audiobook after that. But this one, I just went straight to the audiobook and then some physically reading, and I was just bored. I just found it so boring and mundane, and I didn't care about any of the characters, and I was just like, when is this gonna be over? This is like a longer version of The Professor, and it's too long. Like, let's see, my version is almost 600 pages, this Penguin classic. So I really didn't enjoy it, but I know that other people, it is their favorite. So if you haven't read it yet, don't let that put you off. Okay, number 6. This is my second least favorite novel by the Brontes, and for some people this is their favorite as well. So this might hurt you guys a little bit, but probably actually won't be too surprising because this is such a polarizing book. It is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is Emily Bronte's sole novel. She's written poetry that I have not read, but I know that I've heard some of it and been like, wow, that's amazing poetry. But I just did not like Wuthering Heights. I just found it so sad and depressing, and the child abuse and animal abuse, I know it's not shown as a good thing, but I still just didn't want to be reading about it. So yeah, I strongly disliked it, although I did read this last Victober, so Victober of 2019. I buddy read it with my cousin Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf. I'll link her channel below. And we buddy read it together, and that was such a good way to read it. Like, it made it so much more enjoyable. I took it in a lot because we were, every couple chapters we would be messaging each other on Voxer and being like, oh my goodness, this just happened. What do you think of this? But yeah, I really don't like it. And it's funny because people who I have similar tastes with, like Kate Howe, she loves this book, but I just don't. Okay, we're getting to the middle of the pack. This is number 5, also written by Charlotte. 4 of the 7 novels were written by Charlotte. This one was her first written novel, The Professor. Not first published, but first written. It's all scratched up on the front from where the price tag was. But yeah, like I said earlier, this is similar to Villette, but shorter. And so that's why it ranks higher up than Villette, because I didn't like it either, but it was like, at least it's shorter. I found it boring. We were in the head of this professor, I can't even remember his name, and to me, I just didn't like being in his head. I didn't care about the characters. I mean, it sounds like with these 3 novels I'm saying I hated them. I don't hate them. I'm glad I read them. I'm really glad I did, but I probably won't be reading them again, to be honest. Unless somebody was like, please read Villette with me, then maybe I would do that, but I don't think so. Okay, number 4. This is exactly in the middle of the pack. This is also by Charlotte Bronte, and it is Shirley. This book, I did enjoy. The other 3, I can't even really say that I enjoyed. Maybe I just said that. I don't remember. But I can't even really say that I enjoyed it. I survived those 3. Shirley, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but it was okay. It was interesting. The first chunk is pretty boring, so if you're having trouble getting into it, just know that it does get better, in my opinion. Once Caroline was introduced, and then Shirley was introduced about a third of the way through the book. Caroline is the main character, not Shirley. I found it more interesting, and I was enjoying it, and I was invested in the characters. There were times when the novel went off and followed these random people who you're like, these are minor characters, why are we spending so much time on them? So it did kind of feel like if there was a skeleton of the story, and normally there's nice, like, branches off the skeleton, there's arms, there's ribs, there's leg bones, there's the skull. It felt a little bit like, oh, there was this giant, like, growth that came out on the side that felt like it shouldn't have been there. It felt like it should have been trimmed away. Maybe if an editor had, I think if an editor really went to town on this, I would probably enjoy it a lot more. But I still enjoyed it. I read roughly a chapter a day for Victober, and it was okay. It was okay. I didn't mind it. Okay, these top 3 novels, I would say I love these top 3. So, bottom 3, didn't really like. Middle one, kind of apathetic. Top 3, love them. Now, as you may have guessed, I have not mentioned Anne yet. Anne has not been in the bottom, and I feel like usually she is overlooked and in the bottom of people's favorites. So this will come as a surprise to you when I tell you my 3rd favorite Bronte novel. Maybe there'll be a gasp or two out there. My 3rd favorite Bronte novel is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. For most people, this is their favorite Bronte novel, either this or Withering Heights. But it's not. It's my 3rd favorite. And I like the characters. I like Jane. Rochester is pretty despicable, but he's a very interesting character. But I don't love Gothic books, and this is Gothic, just like Withering Heights is. And I don't like how Jane is a strong character, but I won't give any spoilers, but I just don't really like the journey that her character goes on. I feel like it's unsatisfying to me. So yeah, and Rochester, I know we're not supposed to look up to him as the perfect romantic lead. He's got his problems. But I don't like him, and I always like books with more characters, like not too many, but more, whereas Jane Eyre, it feels like, there's Jane, there's Rochester, there's a bunch of other characters, but there isn't enough, like it's just not enough for me. And maybe if I reread it, I've read it 3 times, so that shows that I do love it if I've read it 3 times. So if I read it again, maybe I would enjoy it more, but this is, it's kind of known as a romance, and it's often touted as a romance or like a Bildungsroman of Jane Eyre, but I just don't love it as much as the other 2, although I do enjoy it. It is a good book. Don't get me wrong. It is a good book. I think this was the first Victorian novel I read, but compared to the other 2, I'm just not that fussed about it. I hope I used fussed right. We don't really use that term where I'm from here in Canada, but after watching enough BookTube, I feel like I think I used that word right. Okay, now for my top 2. Now, if you know the Brontes, you know that my top 2 are both Anne Bronte. So you know that Anne is obviously my favorite Bronte sister. So my 2nd favorite is Agnes Grey. This is Anne Bronte's first novel, and I really enjoyed it. I read it in September, so a month or 2 ago, and I did not realize how good it was. Like, I'd heard that if you love Tennant of Wildfell Hall, then you won't love Agnes Grey, so I was a bit concerned. But I really liked it because I love Tennant, and then I read this and I loved it. I thought it was great. It starts off pretty sad and rough, and it shows this young woman, Agnes, just like making a way for herself and just trying to get through what she needs to get through, and then it develops into this really sweet romance. And the final scene, I won't say what it is or whatever, but it has this beautiful setting on the ocean, and it was just like, this is so beautiful. I just love this ocean setting in the last scene. And so, like, I read this in 2 days. I was supposed to be doing a month-long buddy read of this with my cousin Naomi, but I ended up reading it in 2 days, and I was like, I'm sorry, Naomi, it was just so good, I had to keep reading it. Okay, so my number 1 favorite Bronte novel is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. This is so good. There's so much to it. There's commentary on marriage, on women's roles in the Victorian period. It is a proto-feminist work, so it's you know, it was very controversial at the time. And there's this one moment where I won't give any spoilers, but one of the characters, a woman, slams the door in her husband's face. And he has been mistreating her, and she slams the door in her husband's face. And what was so controversial at the time was not how he was mistreating her, but the fact that she slammed the door in his face. It is so good. It is like way ahead of its time. I love it so much. It's definitely my favorite, and it's one that I want to reread in the next coming months. Actually, both this and Agnes Grey I want to reread in the coming months. Just really enjoyed it so much. So yeah, that is what I think of the Bronte novels. That's my ranking, and I'm sticking to it unless you can convince me otherwise. So yeah, if you've read any of the Bronte novels, let me know down below, like what's your favorite, or if you've just read one, what you liked about it. In recommending where to start, if you haven't read any of them, I would recommend Jane Eyre. That's usually the one that people start with. So yeah, anyways, I guess that's all I had to say. So may you all be filled with peace, hope, love, and joy. So take care, everyone. Bye.